Hi to everyone and welcome to the Art of the Protest podcast. I'm Juan David and I'm a student of economics at National University. And today we have a very special guest, Natalia Larrota, who will talk to us more about the strike of 2021 in Colombia. I know that in different social media and in some TV programs, we observed several violations of human rights. But today, she is going to talk about in a different way or in a different term, that is the graffiti and street art that we observe in different concentration places, especially in two places. First, Portal de la Resistencia, that is a transportation portal system located in the south of the city, and on the other hand, Monumento de Héroes, which is a monument to the heroes of independence that is located in the north of the city. These places became in a cultural space where art, culture, and music took the streets to give a message to the government. For that reason, welcome Natalia. I want to listen more about yourself.
Hello, I'm Natalia, as you said, and I'm an economics student at the National University of Colombia. I'm really excited about this program, about being here today. My group of investigations, which is made up of Felipe Caredenas, Angel Martínez, and Juan Roa, and I have been working too much on this project. We think that it's paramount to tell us about the importance of graffiti in the protest, what that means in all the social contexts.
It's a pleasure having you in here, and we are colleagues of economics. Okay, first, I would like to know more about your research. What methodology did you use, and which were the main points that you considered in it? How did you get some data and information to talk about it?
Well, in all of our investigations, we tried all the time to be closer to the situation, so for that reason, we start searching as many tools as possible to choose some of them, and everything with the objective to be really critical. So we use some videos related to the topic, and at the same time, we analyze some interviews that allows us to be closer, and that was our main point. So first of all, the videos guide us to understand the circumstance in a general way, answering questions related to the places where the art movement was developed and the activities that happened there. So then, as these situations was close to the society, we believe that one of the most powerful and important source is the tool that we called Voice of the Community. And that tool help us to be aware of why these movements, and here we are talking about graffiti paintings. So why bloomed in the middle of the protest, and how the community support those spaces that appear as a consequence from riot. At the same time, we take the interviews because people involved in the graffiti movement can tell us more details about why they believe that graffiti has a huge impact on the viewers, why they use it, and what they try to express through the paintings on the streets of Bogota. So in other words, the community voice and the citizens' reports gave a way to do it. To return to my original point in a general way, the project was oriented to search how this specific place have transformed themselves and the cultural meaning of that change by graffiti, using the correct tools to be closer, as I said before, because this was the main point, to give us a reflection about it, the information about it, and to collect the data, being closer to all that happened in the strike.
Okay, it's very interesting your research, but I have another question. Why did people choose those specific places? Tell us more about the history of these places before the strike.
That's an interesting question, and I think that it's a good start for all that we are talking about right now. So, first of all, the things I want to highlight is that both places were a symbol before the strike. They were relevant even before the strike. And the principal reason is because both places are paramount for the transportation of the city due to the principal public system of transport. And as everybody knows, there have terminals in those places. So what I want to say is both places do not go unnoticed. And additionally, it is in itself, it's a monument in honor of the soldiers involved in Colombia's independence. Another thing that I want to say, and that it's really important to explain why these places and the importance before and after, as the main reasons to use those places were in Portal La Resistencia was one of the largest portal of the capital transport system, so the protesters can occupy the place permanently to call attention to them and their petitions. Meanwhile, in Ares, the Protestants decided to conduct a march to the north side of the city. So in that way, Portal de la Resistencia and Monumento a los Héroes served as a place of meeting and organizations. Both places were the headquarters of the biggest concentration of people in the city since the national strike began.
During the strike, several cultural activities were a motivating factor to meet and to resist. Which were the main activities in those places? And how was the environment that people created there?
Yes, there were too many activities that took place in both places, and every activity have a paramount influence on the community. As we could find in our research, not only were side of manifestations, but also there came about activities that create community, such as libraries, talks, paintings, community foods, and other kinds of actions that let people share with others. The different kind of tags promotes the permanent concentration of people in those places, not for their common use or activity, but their new meaning, points of resistance. And it's important to highlight that point because that means that those activities were the principal motivating factors of the resistance. And as the interview with people said in the video that we use, this place was created as an answer for all human rights violations that happened during the strike in 2021. And that means that there are points not only for the requirements that people have before the strikes began, the reasons why the strike began, but also for all the violations of rights that happened during that time. So while the protested progresses, Portal de la Resistencia and Monumento a los Héroes not only transcends as meeting points of resistance, but as a space where people who participate raising their voice could be safe. These spaces guarantee life rights, freedom of expression, physical integrity, and the right to protest. So actually the creation of movements, collectives and groups and their appropriation of this place added to all the support that they could find on them. So it keep the protests alive for more than a month and even remind us of the power of resignification of urban space in a peaceful way. For example, through art. We found that the art was the main tool that people use and the main activity that get together all the people. So in a sense, more than we talked before, there were too many activities that took place there, and these campaigns built the necessary environment to consolidate the community in the same proposals, being art the leading way to express the message. So the points of resistance became in a humanitarian space due to those campaigns, where a clear result of the protest is that people resignificate place through paintings, activities, and a sense of community. I mentioned before the resignification of both places, but now let me put it in this way. People create an environment that causes a sense of community, and that sense allows the resignification of those places. Anyway, to get the point, resignification was the transformation of both places during that time. Their social meaning was changed by people, and that is to say, by graffiti, by art.
As I mentioned before, there were several altercations between demonstrators and the police force that result with different types of violations of human rights. I want to know more about it, and what data do you have to show us the numbers of the human rights violations? And why did people not give up despite police harassment?
Now that you talk about it, in our collection of data we found that the report includes militarization of public transport equipment, warplanes, and supply of non-conventional weapons in the portal, illegal detentions, abuse of minors, and sexual violence by the security force, complaints of the indiscriminate shooting of tear gas, blackouts, and shootings, fewer more presence and harassments by armed civilians, and a considerable number of demonstrators were killed, and another was wounded in their eyes, faces, and even bodies. So, as you know, the measure of how many people were affected in these altercations, it's really difficult to get. So about the data, according to the prosecutor office, there were more than 20 deaths in the 50 days of protest. But various human rights organizations raised that figure to 84, at least 20 of them were killed by police shoots. So there were several altercations between demonstrators and the police force, and while the community tried to create peace space where art, music, and culture allowed them to raise their voice, the strategy of the police was to arrive at night to those places with the objective of dispersing people. And for that reason, the citizens made a public espouse of the violation of rights and the strikes began, and as I told you before, in the humanitarian space. That is to say that even though the activities and demonstrators were peaceful by the community, the response of the police was brutal and aggressive. There is a common indignation about the repeated harassment from public force with the demonstrators. However, a huge majority of manifestators spread a message of peace. So, in consequence, they did not respond with more violence, but with art, by changing the place meaning, turning them in indistinguishable symbols of the strike. And that is what we are really concerned about, because they decided to respond with peace, with art, and no matter what was the strategy of the police force. Despite these episodes, we observed, thanks to some reports and interviews, that demonstrators did not give up. Conversely, it turned into a new motive of protest. Through graffiti, artists took to the walls some sensations of protesters, and this has message denouncing the violations commitment by the public force. Graffiti became a safe space to raise the voice of the community, and a space that was hardly going to be censored.
Okay, finally, why do you think that people choose graffiti as a main tool to raise awareness to society and to give a special message to the government?
This is the questions that I was waiting for. I want to highlight one more time the sense of community and how this was possible due to the environment created by people. Then, as I told you before, that environment was possible due to the different activities, and many of these activities were focused on art, especially graffiti. For instance, artists have designed and created four graffiti forms. The first, that is most known with a message as "Down with Bad Government" or "No to Tax Reforms." Another is cartellings that is produced in an atelier. A further is associated with denouncing the excess of the public force. And the last one has to do with graffiti on the floor. This type is new and it is observed in a lot of streets. Besides, some places were transformed into gallery graffiti and they have become a symbol for the strikes. So painting is a way of communicating. Words sometimes fail to have that impact that have. So the strike in Colombia in 2021 was a relevant occurrence in the recent history of the country, and one way in which demonstrators called the attention of all the citizens was through graffiti. In consequence, those places have become a symbol of protest. But why? The protest acquires a different perspective from the art movement, which represents the voice of the strike. Therefore, those places changed their social significance during the strikes due to art, and that change transformed the voice of protest against the government. Graffiti became a sensitive symbol to communicate, visualize, and denounce violence, inequality, poverty, which increased with the pandemic, actually, and lack of government support for artists. They choose graffiti saying it is a way to manifest what is censored in many other spaces, which therefore the relevance of graffiti on social movement.
I really enjoy that you be here, Natalia. Thank you for giving us more interesting data about the graffiti and art during this strike. It's a different focus, and I hope that listeners got interested on it. Thank you for listening to us, and I hope that in the future we will be able to talk about a different current situation. Thank you. See you later.